Somehow the Blackcaps have, they didn't just win a test. They didn't just win 2 tests. They won a test series in India, and who cares what happens in the third test because the Blackcaps just won a test series in India. There is a lot to roll through here. Is there anything you just want to raise first and foremost?
Well, I don't want to raise this like full mast here, but I also don't want to half mast this idea because that sounds like that's what you do for tragedies, right? So I don't know what the metaphor is supposed to be, but I'm just going to float it out there that maybe the third test does matter more now in a weird way because they've kind of got themselves back into the World Test Championship picture. It's an outside opportunity. But the only way they were going to have any hope at all is if they got a few wins in India, and they have. England, I think, are out of it now because they lost their series to Pakistan, which was, yeah. Test cricket has had a great few weeks. You know, there's been some fantastic stuff going on. Um, they, they would probably need to win all of those tests against England, or like let's say 3 of their 4 tests and maybe draw the other one. But there is a possibility because India does now go to Australia where maybe they will lose to Australia. Um, that's quite possible based on if they're playing the way they played against the Blackcaps and they're suddenly going to Australia. So I don't know. There's a little bit of a crack in the door there that the Blackcaps might be able to squeeze through, but it is still very unlikely. The fact they lost the 2 games in Sri Lanka more or less ended it, but not officially. And suddenly they've opened the door back up because really, when you think about it, before this tour, I think the more likely opportunity would have been if they won 2 tests in Sri Lanka and then lost 2 tests in India. Was the more likely thing. They've done it the other way around, so that's beautiful. But yeah, I'll just leave that idea out there. Is that the World Test Championship final isn't completely out of reach? It's probably out of reach, but they have kept a little bit of hope alive by winning these first 2 tests. And if they somehow miraculously win a third test in India and sweep them, which let's not get carried away, but that would leave them a more genuine opportunity because I think winning test at home against England is more likely than anything else they've done so far in the last little bit. So yeah, sneaky one. Yeah, just float that idea out there. It's still a very, very small but outside possibility.
It is indeed. The Blackcaps are fourth in the World Test Championship, 5-5, 50% winning rate. Sri Lanka are third, they're 5-4, so they got 55.56, and then you got India and Australia above. They're both on 62%. So I think if you just scroll through previous World Test Championships, they're fourth now. They were sixth in the last cycle, and of course they finished third, but won the final of the first World Test Championship. So if they can stay where they are, top four, that's top four in 2 of the 3 World Test Championships with a victory in a final. That's pretty decent. Like, I have been thinking about this because it was pretty low before the T20 World Cup and after being swept in Sri Lanka. Even me, who has been Mr. I believe in New Zealand cricket. It's taken a lot of energy and meditation to really, like, the White Ferns have had to be pretty shit for me to go to say they suck. I don't do that lightly. But ultimately with the Blackcaps, aside from highlighting when they have been grittyless, when they've had no grit, when they've been shit, other than like the blatantly obvious, I think I've been pretty favourable to New Zealand cricket. I can see that they're a good organisation. I can see that their business practices are solid. I can see that there is a lot of talent in Aotearoa, men and women, for cricket. I can see that the Blackcaps are in a period of transition, that yes, there's been lots of young players coming into the team and performing at a higher level. I don't think I've been as down, as negative as many others about the state of New Zealand cricket. Until we're in that phase of it was only like a couple of weeks until we're in the phase of the T20 World Cup hadn't started and the Blackcaps had just been rolled 2-0 in Sri Lanka, that was probably the lowest I've been on New Zealand cricket. And I made that opinion known. Now, here we are, and I'm kind of contemplating if there would be need to be a significant change in the New Zealand cricket fortunes for me to stop believing in New Zealand cricket. Obviously, we've had a lot has changed in a short amount of time. The White Ferns just won the T20 World Cup, and they are performing well in India without Amelia Kerr. They won the second ODI without Amelia Kerr. They may do something in the third ODI. If they do something in the third ODI, I'm just chilling out. Like, there's no need for negativity if the White Ferns can win an ODI series in India, and if they perform well without Amelia Kerr, given what they just done, it's all good. Like, I'm not worried. I'm not going to conjure up negativity. And of course, the Blackcaps just won a Test series in India. So, like, there has been a lot of down moments. We had the Blackcaps T20 World Cup campaign. We've had Blackcaps losing tests they probably shouldn't lose. They were pretty decent at the ODI World Cup last year. We know the White Ferns story, and it's all come together here and now. And I'm still highly positive, optimistic, and I just kind of believe in what they're up to. As a organization, as a business practice, as teams, as development structures and pathways, I like what is happening with New Zealand cricket. But let's get into the nitty-gritty of the Blackcaps' victory in the second test. You already know who scored runs and took wickets. You already know that, and we will discuss some bits and pieces about that, but you're not coming to this podcast for a news recap. Like, they won a couple of days ago. You probably already tapped in with that. So let's get into some deep in the mangroves kind of takeaways. I do find it hilarious and beautiful that after dishing up a seaming deck, India, in their infinite wisdom, they were like, nah, we need some spin. That's too seam friendly and wherever it was. Sorry, forgive me. Bengaluru. We can't have any seam bowling excellence in India. So we're going to go spin. It's going to be stinking hot. It's going to be dry, and it's going to be spinny. What happened? They lost. We won. So we've gone to India. The Blackcaps have gone to India. They pounced on a seaming opportunity. Rolled India for 46. Like, let's be honest at what happened. They pounced on that opportunity. They won that test. And then India, as they should do, went spinny. And we beat them there as well. Like, this is a beautiful... because it did feel like, yeah, if you're going to dish up seaming conditions, that's a bit silly. And the Blackcaps made the most of that opportunity. But if India dished up seaming conditions again and we won, it'd feel like there's a bit of an asterisk there. Like, what are India up to? Why are India dishing up favourable conditions to the touring Kiwi team? No, India did the opposite. They went spinny, and we still won. And I want to slide backwards a little bit. I just want to put this out there. First of all, this is the equivalent of, you remember the home series against Bangladesh where Bangladesh won at Bay Oval. For those who don't know, I view Bay Oval as probably the most spinny, dry, kind of lowy, slowy deck in Aotearoa. And I'd have Seddon Park and Hamilton behind that. So that's the equivalent of India dishing up seaming conditions. New Zealand dished up spinny, lower, slower conditions for Bangladesh at Bay Oval. What happened after that? I think they went to Hagley Oval and it was super duper seamy. So we won. The Blackcaps won that test. So this is the thing I was thinking about is, okay, so what if Bangladesh won on the spinny deck at Bay Oval and then they found a green seamer in Hagley, in Christchurch, and they won that test as well. That smells a lot like what just happened here with the Blackcaps in India. And I kind of feel like this is I feel like we've been building towards this in a sneaky way. I don't think we've been building towards this performance with how the team has been performing, because they just got rolled in Sri Lanka. Like, there wasn't a lot of building going on there. However, the Blackcaps played in India in 2021, I believe. Ajaz Patel, Mumbai Magic, he took his 10 wickets. And shout out Will Somerville, he bowled 69 overs and didn't take a wicket, so good stuff there. But that was the Ajaz Patel show. That was a few years ago. That was in India. After that, they went to Pakistan. Who were the best bowlers in Pakistan? Ish Sodhi, 13 wickets and an average of 25. Michael Bracewell, 8 wickets and an average of 39. Ajaz Patel took 5 wickets but an average of 64. Then they went to Bangladesh last year. Glenn Phillips, 8 wickets at an average of 16. Mitchell Santner, 6 wickets at an average of 19. Ajaz Patel, 14 wickets at an average of 23.9. And then we go to Sri Lanka, where Ajaz Patel was tied with Will O'Rourke for the most wickets, 8 wickets and an average of 35. G. Philly, 5 wickets and an average of 48. Mitchell Santner, 1 wicket and an average of 197.
Who's that guy? What's he doing in the team?
Well, he took 6 wickets at an average of 19 in Bangladesh. Like, he did that last year. But of course, if you're India, you're not paying attention to any other country, so you might not have seen that. And to your point, you may have forgotten about that. Mitchell Santner bowling pretty well in Bangladesh, 1 test, 6 wickets. My point here is that over the last few years, the Blackcaps started in India, they went to Pakistan, they went to Bangladesh, they went to Sri Lanka, and now they're back in India. Those are the 4 test-playing nations from Asia. And the Blackcaps have played in each of those nations over, since the end of the pandemic. So you've got that experience. It's largely the same batters, largely the same bowlers. Will Young's the freshest batter in the team. Well, Will Young and Rachin Ravindra are the newest batters in the team. They both played in India the first time around. The spinners have all played in these tours. That's why I bring up their records, because it's like there's been so many different dudes contributing apart from Will Somerville. Ajaz Patel, best bowler of the Indian series. Ish Sodhi, best bowler of the Pakistan series, with support from Michael Bracewell and Ajaz Patel. In Bangladesh last year, Ajaz Patel, Mitchell Santner, Glenn Phillips. In Sri Lanka, it didn't really come together, but a lot of the players have they've toured every team in Asia now. Like the spinners, most of them are over 30 years old. Most of them have experience in the different Asian nations. And I don't think it's necessarily a fluke. It seems like a fluke. It seems crazy in my mind, given what just happened in Sri Lanka. Like, that turnaround is ridiculous, but I'll get to that in a jiffy. But when you go through, I can't remember too many times where the Blackcaps have toured every Asian nation in the space of 3 years.
I would guess it's never happened.
And different dudes have performed. And different dudes have gained that experience. And they're all pretty mature cricketers. Even Glenn Phillips, Sam Wells took over as chief selector. Then Glenn Phillips is suddenly the test all-rounder for that series in Bangladesh last year. So Glenn Phillips has played in Bangladesh, in Sri Lanka, in India, in the space of 12 months. And by the sounds of it, this seems like a pretty rare occurrence, but you can see how the skills and the nous and the craft and the confidence was building, aside from whatever the truck happened in Sri Lanka.
Yeah, I think by the time the Blackcaps first toured Bangladesh, I think Pakistan were by then playing games in the UAE. So I think it's only the last couple of years we have had four teams all playing. And technically there is a fifth team, but Afghanistan don't play test matches in Afghanistan for a really obvious reason. So that, but we almost played against Afghanistan and India. It just got rained off. So they tried to complete the set as close to as they could. So yeah, that is a rarity. And I think as much as the spinners benefited from getting that experience on the spinniest decks around the world, I think the batters even more so, because there's something about the way they played in Pune there in the second test against India, where it was like they're not suddenly great against spin. Blackcaps have a notorious generally we've been terrible against spin bowlers. And I've seen that sort of it's probably Jared Kimber or someone like that did a little bit of a breakdown on how that's gone. And the conclusion seems to be less that spin bowling is terrible in New Zealand conditions, because one thing we have seen throughout is that world-class spinners come to New Zealand and take wickets, regardless of the fact that it's green. And people do often say, like, if it seems, it'll spin, and vice versa. So good spinners have been able to do that. I think the difference is that the Plunket Shield seems to have like the lowest percentage of spin bowling compared to most other things. So just batters don't face enough of it. Here we've had like a 2-3 year span where the best batters in the Blackcaps Test team have faced a lot of spin and spinny conditions and have got used to that. And like, yeah, they weren't suddenly amazing against it in India, but they were good enough, and they were good enough because they had a plan. They swept a hell of a lot. They were reverse sweeping, they were paddle sweeping, little bit of slog sweeping, but generally that was when they got into a bit of trouble. I can remember Glenn Phillips getting out trying to hit one, and I can remember him just completely missing the ball on a couple other occasions trying to catch up with those. A little bit harder for those because you got to get under the ball, and that means allowing it more room to spin. But there were times they got out playing reverse sweeps and some of these things where it's like, this feels risky, but it also feels consistent. It feels like it was something that they went in there knowing that this is a way to combat the spin as best they could. And they didn't have to score 500 plus in an innings to win that second test. I'm pretty sure they outscored India in both of their innings versus both of India's innings, but I can't remember exactly. The point is that India didn't get particularly close to that target in the end, despite a scary start when Jaiswal was smacking the ball around all parts. That was a little bit worrying, but yeah, I think that's a good point that I hadn't really considered, is just how they have actually like just ticked off all these things. They've had a lot of experience. Some of it was good. Like there was they drew the test series in Bangladesh. They drew the test series in Pakistan. Like the Pakistan one, a lot of runs. Bangladesh one, hardly any runs. And I think Pakistan, was both test matches were draws, but from memory, there was at least one of those where they were pushing for a victory in the last session of the match and just ran out of time. Bangladesh, they lost 1-1, so that was cool. Just a bit of
I think
so. Bit of both.
8 tests across this period, like after the India stuff, because that was a while ago. That was earlier in the bracket. But Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and India, 8 tests. They're 3-3.
Yes, I'm looking at it here. That's exactly where they are. And they lost 1-0 in India in 2021. So they drew the first test, lost the second test. And yeah, this is a rare occurrence in the way that they've been able to tally up these subcontinent test matches. It's also a rare occurrence in that they've won it's a rare occurrence in that they've won an away series full stop. Because I was looking back on their away records, and like the last time they won an away series, they've had some good drawn series. They drew with Bangladesh and Pakistan. They drew with England in 2021. That was directly before the World Test Championship. Have since gone back to England and got swept, but we won't talk about that. Drew with Sri Lanka at the start of the first World Test Championship cycle. There was, yeah, a draw with England in 2015, draw with Pakistan in the UAE in 2014. Last time they won a series away from home was against Pakistan in 2018. Won 2-1 over 3 test matches. I remember that. There was some fantastic stuff in that test match. There's a couple of great games and yeah, awesome stuff. That was in the
in the
UAE.
UAE. Yeah, sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was in technically neutral conditions. Away condition, like it's somewhere in that borderline because Pakistan were playing all their games at that point in the UAE, so it's not like they were unfamiliar, but it's also not the same as having like a big raucous crowd. Those UAE stands are always basically empty. Um, Before that, 2-0 win over Zimbabwe in 2016. Cool. But it is Zimbabwe. And we haven't played them again since that, 8 years and counting. That's nice, but to have beaten a more established team, you got to go back to a 2-1 win over the West Indies in 2014. So this is like 1-2 years into Kane Williamson's career. The last time they won a sort of even that like the doesn't compare at all to winning to like beating India in India. So like they've had some good promising away series in that time, but yeah, there's where are we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Their last 17 away tours, they've won 4 of them, including this one. They had gone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 tours and since that Pakistan one, 8 away tours without winning a series. Did have, they're 4-4 in that time in terms of series results, 4 drawn series, 4 lost series. So it's not like they were terrible, but this is also a big milestone for this team just in that context, not just the India and India context, but just away in general. It's really hard to win test matches away from home. It's even harder to win test series away from home. Blackcaps have competed in a lot of series, haven't actually done that for a wee while, but here they've done it in kind of the most triumphant fashion possible.
Do you remember? It's a strange old time because do you remember when the best Blackcaps batters were Daryl Mitchell and Tom Blundell?
Yeah, that was right about that time where I've got written here, lost 3-0 to England in 2022.
Right, so in the series against India, Daryl Mitchell, 54 runs at an average of 18. Strike rate 42.8. Like, all the other batters had strike rates over 50. And then you had Matt Henry, 88. So there are only 2 dudes with lower strike rates than Daryl Mitchell and Tom Blundell. Ajaz Patel and Will O'Rourke. Will O'Rourke didn't score a run. Tom Blundell, 49 runs, average of 16, strike rate of 47. So they just won 2 tests in India with those dudes. Like Tom Blundell did hit a 41. I believe that was in the second test. And that means Daryl Mitchell's the only batter who didn't score over 40 runs in an innings of this test series. Saying what we're saying about the stuff in Asia and the experience gathered there, well, Tom Blundell, he's played 10 tests in Asia and he averages 20. Daryl Mitchell has played 9 tests in Asia and he averages 25. Both of those are well down the other geographical batting stats. So I kind of think they're just down in form and they'll find something at some point, but it kind of amplifies the trickiness of what was happening there and how they've had the experience in Asia, but it hasn't necessarily, like, not everyone has dominated and not everyone has scored runs, but that only sets up how good this test series win was because neither of those dudes, like, they were the best batters at one point along with Kane Williamson. Now the best batter is Rachin Ravindra. They won this test series in India without Kane Williamson. They didn't need him because they got Rachin Ravindra. Like, it's all good. They also have Slinky Santner. I got to point it out. There was another run out where he had a release point around his knee. Around knee high was his release point, and that is the most Slinky Santner thing ever. Whenever I hear Santner, like, who's the Blundell, and he's like, yeah, bowling slink. Or so you hear on the mic, and it's like, yeah, Slinky, or Santner, whatever. I'm thinking Mitchell Santner cruising to his left, pick up and throw, but he lets go of the ball around the height of his knee. I saw him do that. He had a run out against Pakistan at the Bay Oval. He did that then. And then he did it again to Rishabh Pant. And that is like, think about how much time it takes to pick the ball up one-handed and then get the ball above your shoulder height. That's too much time. So now think about picking the ball up one-handed and getting it up to your belly button and trying to like sling it sideways. That's too much time. He just does it from knee high. And it's one of the craziest fielding things that I've seen someone do consistently. Because yeah, I can throw from knee high, not powerful, not accurate, not on the move. And I'm sure there's a lot of other cricketers, like Devon Conway doesn't throw above his shoulder high too often unless he has to like hoof it in from the boundary. But he's not doing the one hand pickup, accurate, over the top of the stumps for a run out. So like, yeah, you're an international cricketer. You can do a lot of crazy fielding shit, but Santner has now done it a few times where he gets a run out by letting the ball go at or below knee high. And I love it.
Do you ever see those baseball pitchers who throw sidearm? It's kind of like that, eh?
Yeah, but it's not. It's knee high. It's not sidearm. It's
Those
low
guys
arm.
those guys are pretty low sometimes in that release. But then I guess the difference as well is they're standing there and throwing it. You know,
Yeah.
Sanders running, picking up the ball and hurling it on the move, and then still hitting it in the strike zone like that. You know, that's pretty. I agree. That is I love it when you see that stuff.
Yeah, I can't stand for any comparison to baseball. Like it's
Well, it's only a comparison in that he is better.
yeah, good save. You're the relieving pitcher. Good save. Aside from his fielding excellence, and I will also add, this goes into one idea I want to finish with, but Blackcaps were the better fielding team, straight up and down. Full steak and cheese pie. They were the better fielding team, better catching, better outfielding, better infielding, better fielding. And I think that is the most important return to New Zealand cricket fundamentals that there is. There's a lot of kind of stuff we can't necessarily measure, or it's just kind of vibey, like what we think their tactics are, planning and preparation, and how they move through games and concede a tough patch, but then come back in the next session, the next day to take wickets to up the ante, whatever. The most important thing for New Zealand cricket teams is being better at fielding than the opposition. To me, that just sets the tone for everything. And you can see it when dudes are chasing the ball to the boundary. You can see how willing they are to put their bodies in any position. Because some opponents, don't want to be rude to the Indians, but we'll go, some opponents, they're only going to dive a certain way. They're only going to put their body on the line in a certain way. New Zealand cricket teams, that doesn't apply to them. They're diving head first, they're diving feet first, they're diving on the left, they're diving on the right, one-hander, two-hander, whatever is required, they are going to do it. And like whether it's team-wide, whether it's like someone like Devon Conway patrolling the boundary, whether it's someone like Rachin Ravindra patrolling the boundary, I think those dudes are good fielders, but it's their effort and their attitude and their intensity that gives New Zealand the advantage. But then you've got Glenn Phillips chasing the ball to the boundary. Then you've got Santner doing his stuff. Like this, when New Zealand's fielding is on point, I think they are a very good team, and that was the case in the first test and the second test. So shout out to the fielding. They were a better fielding team, and I put a very high value on New Zealand's fielding. However, I'm curious, like, what did you make of the whole Santner resurgence? Emergence, maybe. Well, not emergence,
Yeah,
because I did point out he was good in Bangladesh.
he wasn't. He was good in Bangladesh, taking a maximum of 3 wickets in a test. Like I think I didn't realize this, but they said on the commentary that he had the world record for the most wickets in Test cricket without ever taking a forfeit, which is
Great
quite
bowling.
an insane record to have. It
He's
is
the
it
best.
or it's some. Well, he's the best at something. Well, he's not anymore because he's not
Good.
the world record holder because he just took a 7 for and a 6 for in the same Test match, having only taken one 5 wicket haul in 63 previous first class matches. Not even Test matches. He'd taken one 5 for in first class cricket, and I think only two four-baggers, and one of those was his. No, neither of them were. Because his best bowling in a Test match was 3 for something or other before this. Emergence, even like resurgence, I don't think is the right word because he never did anything like this before. You can't be returned, like he can't be researching. He's just surging. But even emergence, surgence, like these things don't feel like it says. Even that feels like it's underselling it. Like there was absolutely nothing in his statistical background. We've talked plenty about how he always looks the goods, but he'd played at least 25 test matches without ever producing the goods like that. And I don't know if he'll do it again. Like he's not going to do it again to that extent, but I don't even know if he'll like he might well go back to just being the guy who at best ties down an end and maybe takes a couple of wickets in the second innings if it starts to turn a little bit. Or maybe the spinner who's picked a little bit more for his, like all those for his batting, all the stuff that we've seen from him in the past. He might well just go back to being that. But it also this feels like that White Ferns thing again, where it's like, and I think Mitchell Santner's a lot more likely to revert than the White Ferns are, but as the White Ferns are showing, because they might want a test series in India if they can follow through
ODI
in the third
series.
ODI series. If they follow through in the third ODI, you're right. Like if we never get test cricket good Santner version again, whatever arrangement of those words is supposed to be the right sentence, we still got it this time, you know. If he only ever does it once, well, it was spectacular when he did it, and it was one of the best Test victories in the history of his nation, and he was the man of the match within that. But just, I'm still like stunned about the extent to which he just turned up and took a whole bunch of wickets, having never shown the capacity for taking wickets like this, even in first class cricket. It's just it blows my mind how what happened with Mitchell Santner there, but it is quite incredible. And in a way, it is maybe one of those parallels again, the New Zealand cricket overall theme, where the White Ferns like stepped up because they got contributions other than just the big three or four and their most experienced players plus Amelia Kerr and whatnot. Like the Mitchell Santner bowling the Blackcaps to a test victory is kind of the same thing as well in its own way. Like I don't know, there's some kind of magic that's been recaptured there in the last couple of weeks. There's some kind of like ancient recipe that's been rediscovered or something. And I do think your point about the fielding is extremely appropriate because I think in many ways that's kind of where it starts. And that was the thing that stood out the most at the beginning of that of the 46 all out that started this tour for the Blackcaps is that they were taking great catches. And they went from taking great catches to then putting up a decent first innings score in which India took a couple of good catches in that one, but also dropped some. They dropped a few chances. Like the only one I can remember getting away from the Blackcaps in that one, I think Tom Blundell did drop Rishabh Pant at one point with a bit of a sitter. And maybe Blundell's wicket keeping throughout this tour is, I won't say the exception to the rule, but maybe just not quite on the same high levels as a lot of his teammates in the outfield, infield, everywhere else, all the guys who don't have gloves on. But overall, it has set a tone for how the Blackcaps have played on across these two Test matches, and that's spectacular because when they were at their best, that is also like that was one of the major traits of them. There is that they were going to be a team that saves runs in the field, that takes catches, they don't have to create as many chances, and just applies pressure in general that way. Which had slipped. It was pretty terrible in Sri Lanka, and it's been pretty superb for the most part in India. Which, yeah, the whiplash from that Sri Lanka series to this, the whiplash from the previous Mitchell Santner to Pune Mitchell Santner, like this, it's it's a little bit dizzying, that much whiplash between such a short thing, let alone the whiplash of the White Ferns as well. These are crazy times we're living through.
Santner is one of 4 bowlers who have bowled over 200 overs in the World Test Championship. Southey's another one. Southey's bowled the most overs, 245. Santner, or the 3 other bowlers who have bowled over 200 overs in the World Test Championship, you got Santner, Phillips, and Ajaz Patel. They all have 26 wickets. Santner's averaging 21.6, Phillips is averaging 26.7, Patel is averaging 31.4. So it's we got spinners. You want a spinner? We got spinners. And they've all had their moments. Patel was really good in Sri Lanka, and he's been pretty solid in those other away tours. Phillips is the new best all-rounder in the team. He is, we've said it, I'll say it again, he's Colin de Grandhomme. But I think he's better than Colin de Grandhomme, and that's his role in the team. And then you've got Santner, 26 wickets, average 21.6. In the World Test Championship, we've also got Will O'Rourke, just casually on 26 wickets and an average of 19. And Matt Henry, 31 wickets, average of 16.3. That sums up the series in my mind. Because Mitchell Santner replaced Matt Henry. Matt Henry was the dude in the first test. Mitchell Santner replaced him, and then Mitchell Santner was the dude in the second test. That's a seamer and a spinner. That tells you all you need to know about the Blackcaps bowling effort. Of course, a lot of dudes scored runs as well. Ravindra is the leading run scorer of the series. Then Devon Conway's had a couple of 50s. Shout out to him. We had a Tom Latham captaincy knock in the second dig. I was extremely agitated. Not extremely. I was agitated during the second innings. I was like, I don't know if there's going to be enough runs. Like, I was still in the I'm scared of India and India mode. No longer in that mode, let me tell you. But I was like a bit iffy because they crumbled in the second innings when Tom Latham hit his big Donny score of 86. There were a couple of dismissals. They were a bit soft in that second innings, and then a couple of the bowlers just decided to like try hit boundaries. And I was like, Glenn Phillips is there. He's not out. He's the dude who's going to hit the boundary. You don't need to hit the boundary. Like, let Glenn Phillips hit the boundaries. You just stay in. So I was a bit frustrated, but then they just rolled India and it was all good. I think these two teams are in quite interesting phases because, as I said, India, like, it was a leftover I'm scared of India. But you could see throughout the second test and the first test, I think the first test was a bit shock and awe because of the conditions and how New Zealand played. But the second test especially, you could see the confidence disappearing. You could see the mental strength of India disappearing. You could see like the Blackcaps batters were attacking Ashwin. Like they were getting on top of India, and my scared levels dropped. To me, as a non-Indian cricket fan, someone who likes to kind of just poke fun at India and England especially, like, I've got to be fair to India. You are part of the little two, but I like India cricket more than England. I like Australia the most of these three nations, the little nations. I like Australia the most. India's second, England is third. So shout out to India. I like you more than England. Given what I've just experienced with the Blackcaps, right? Tim Southey, he was the captain. It wasn't working, whatever. Tim Southey was pretty good in this series as well. Had a big score in the first test. Was pretty solid with the ball throughout when he was required to bowl. For whatever reason, the captaincy stuff just didn't quite work out. That's all good. That's fine. The point is that under Latham, the Blackcaps are sharp. They're sharp like Southey's sharpness that came back when he wasn't captain. This is the Blackcaps we know and love. Great fielding, tactically sound, confident. They're not scared to take on the opposition. They're skillful. To me, there is a notable change in how the Blackcaps play their cricket from Southey to Latham. I don't know if there was actual any changes. I think it's just like the intangible leadership style. The team has taken on the Tom Latham style of being, and the proof is in the pudding. They played very good cricket in these two tests. I think it's the same with India, having gone from Rahul Dravid as coach to Gautam Gambhir. Because the feelings I got from watching India weren't the same as what I've observed under Dravid. They weren't sharp. They weren't precise. The confidence felt a bit manufactured. They had the misfields. They had the strange dismissals. Their bowlers were less impactful. And it's interesting to juxtapose them, to compare them to each other, because both teams, I believe, have changed in their persona, in their personality, in their identity. And we've just experienced the most craziest change in the Blackcaps from the Sri Lanka series to the India series. I believe a lot of that is Latham taking over as captain. And with that stored away inside me, then I observed a similar shift, I believe, with India. Because I think Gambhir took over for their series against Bangladesh. So they played England and India, Bangladesh and India, and now New Zealand. I think Dravid was the coach for their 4-1, maybe, Test series win over England. And then Gambhir took over for the Bangladesh series, and they won that series, I think, quite comfortably, but there are a few iffy moments that you wouldn't necessarily expect, and now New Zealand's just gone there and won 2-0. So I think it's a similar shift in identity and persona. Far more positive for the Blackcaps than India, though.
Yeah, the comparison is really interesting between the two, because there is that I don't know, the residual fear, or the sort of the trained habits of being worried about, well, India are going to come back. We're on top, and India's going to come back. They're going to come back.
It's the Jaswal innings at the start of the second of their run chase. That was holy shit, what is India doing? They got their young freak, and he's just smashing boundaries. I'm about to have a nervous breakdown of oh, this was meant to be it. This was the moment. And then they start to lose wickets, and the floor falls away. And it's all good for the Kiwis, but to me, that was the optimum moment of, I'm scared of India, but it was proven to be incorrect.
Yeah, that was, I thought, the only moment in the test match, though, where it felt like that fear was justified. A lot of the time, there's they're going to come back, but it's in my head and not from what we're seeing on the ground, Whereas that was the one counter-attacking innings where it's oh, this guy's actually capable of scoring 200 here at a run a ball and winning this test match. But at the same time, I'm sitting there thinking 350 odd or whatever it was, the target is a lot of runs to score on a deck like this. And he's kind of the only one who looks like he can do this. You literally get him out, and I don't see a lot of resistance in the Indian batting order, and that's kind of what happened, is they got him out and there wasn't any resistance in the batting order. The reason I was confident there wouldn't be resistance in the batting order is because there wasn't at any other point in the previous 3 innings. India's batted terribly in this series. They started with a 46 all out, so obviously that set some kind of precedent. But even in the 46 all out, well, they were trying to smash their way out of trouble. where it's like, just get to lunch, get to lunch 4 down, and it's not good, but you're still going to be able to bat through this and see off the new ball. A little less overcast. Like, it was obviously conditions weren't going to last forever, and they didn't, because the Blackcaps came out and scored runs on the same wicket. Ravindra scored 100 in that test match. So, like, we talk about the Blackcaps rediscovering a bit of grit, and they had moments like that. I think they highlighted in the run this very start of this test. I think it was on the radio commentary, though. I don't think it was on the TV coverage, which would make sense. I mean, yeah, it was, because it was Jeremy Coney who was going on about like how impressive he thought Conway's innings was in the second innings, where he didn't score many runs, but he occupied the crease for about 40 or 50 balls or something, while Jasprit Bumrah was going wild with the new ball. Like, he was doing crazy things. He got Latham out, just made Latham look a little bit silly at the start of that innings, and that takes some doing. And then, yeah, Conway looked ugly out there, but he grounded out, laid a little bit of a platform, allowed Rachin Ravindra and Will Young to come in slightly more favorable conditions, favorable enough, and then just see through a little bit of a frisky total. A total they always should have got to, but one that could have been quite tricky if you suddenly you're 14 for 3 at the start. And like, it's a low-key moment from Devon Conway, who's been a batter who's not been in good form lately. He's got a couple nice knocks in this series. Like, he does feel like he's turning that around as well, because a few of those have felt like Devon Conway. He's still getting some Conway-esque dismissals. I think we're just going to have to live with that for his. He's going to bat like Conway. He's going to smoke these beautiful drives, reaching out away from his body and smacking things through cover. He's also going to inside edge a few of those now and then. But it does feel like he's starting to get back. But that was like, I liked the way they highlighted that, because it was definitely an instance of the Blackcaps, even in a short space of time there, just knuckling down a little bit. And I don't know that you saw that from India at any point, who felt like they've got a lot of aggressive, great hitters in this team. When I was looking up Tim Southee, like most sixes in Test cricket, where he's sitting on that after the first test, quite a few Indians on that list. And a few of them are current players, like Rohit Sharma's up there, Rishabh Pant's up there, Virat Kohli's up there. They just felt so often like their answer, and I get that this is probably a tactical thing, is they want to be the big dogs, they want to be aggressive, they want to be bullies out there, but they tried to bully their way out of a situation where they were the ones being bullied, and that just it didn't work very well for them, And so apart from Jaiswal, who is absolutely spectacular and has been like maybe the best batter in Test cricket this calendar year, he's scoring the most runs, but he also plays for India.
Rachin Ravindra,
aside from Rachin Ravindra, Ravindra is going to get. Oh well, they're going to Australia as well. Well, that might balance out. If he doesn't score runs in Australia and Ravindra comes back and tons up a couple more times against England, well, he might well come through and sweep that one in the end. But yeah, they just didn't feel like there was a lot of. Long story short, didn't feel like there was a lot of backbone to the Indian batting at any point through these first 2 test matches. Whereas the Blackcaps, it's not like they were perfect, because I think there's a couple times there where they lost their last sort of 5 or 6 wickets for a lot fewer runs than it felt like they would when they were setting things up for bigger totals. So there's happened a couple times during the series, but they've still shown some backbone for the most part. And it's been a joyful resurgence after what we saw in Sri Lanka, where they did get bowled out for 88 in one of those innings. And here it's India who feels like that team. It's India who just feels like they are on the brink of a little bit of a collapse, and the only way to fight through that in their own minds is to hit their way through that. And well, going to be aggressive against Mitchell Santner. He's a world-class T20 bowler. So, let's see how that works out for you. And 13 wickets later,
And we're coming at this from a perspective of, we literally just saw no backbone in the Blackcaps batting in Sri Lanka.
Exactly.
Like we
another one of those whiplash moments.
We know what we're looking for.
Yeah.
Righto, let's move on. We got a lot to discuss. We got to keep it moving, and we got some White Ferns. They're playing this ODI series in India. Lost the first ODI, and Amelia Kerr got injured in the first ODI. So then they come back for the second ODI and they win that. And yes, the second ODI, especially Susie Bates scored runs, Sophie Devine scored runs. They didn't score runs in the first game and the White Ferns lost. So it's completely logical and fine to say when Sophie Devine and Susie Bates are performing without Amelia Kerr, the White Ferns can win. But there is a trend that I am also aware of that was there through the T20 World Cup, where you've got the other players making efficient contributions. Second ODI, Georgia Plymouth, 41 runs at a strike rate of 82. Along with Bates, they get off to a good start. And then we've got Maddie Green, 42 runs at a strike rate of 102. Izzy Gaze, 11 runs, like nothing crazy, just 11 runs at a strike rate of 122. Jess Kerr finishes on 12 not out at a strike rate of 200. This is the most important aspect of White Ferns cricket to me. Like, you're always going to get solid performances from Susie Bates and Sophie Devine. Obviously, you got Leah Tahuhu as well. She took 3 wickets in the second ODI. Sophie Devine took 3 for as well. But with the bat, they need players scoring as many runs off as few deliveries as possible. That's what happened in the T20 World Cup. And that's like, yes, Izzy Gaze, 11 runs, Jess Kerr, 12 runs. These aren't big scores, and that's okay. But they are efficient scores. And when you add up Maddie Green, 42 runs, Gaze, 11, Jess Kerr, 12, that's 60 runs with a strike rate over 100. That's the difference between 200 and 260, which they scored, 259. I believe the White Ferns, they usually lose when they don't get those contributions. And when they do get those contributions, which they have done recently, and it is an emerging trend, I think they're a pretty good cricket team. So in the series overall, Maddie Green has 73 runs at a strike rate of 101. Jess Kerr continues to be a good lower order hitter. She has a strike rate of 136 overall. Gaze had the one good knock. Plymouth's got 66 runs, strike rate of 88, which is pretty good up the top of the order. But that's something I'm watching out for in the third ODI tonight. We'll see how we go. And with the ball, best bowlers, Amelia Kerr, 4 wickets. She's no longer in the team. Eden Carson's got 4 wickets. Jess Kerr's got 5 wickets. Jess Kerr is a much better ODI bowler than a T20 bowler. She has a ODI bowling average of 24.5. She's got a T20 bowling average of 38.7. And she is the leading wicket taker of the series for the White Ferns so far, 5 wickets and an average of 19.6. Jess Kerr wasn't a certified first 11 member of the T20 World Cup team. And so far in this ODI series, she's got 15 runs at a strike rate of 136, and she's got 5 wickets at an average of 19. Like, that's just good Jess Kerr contributions. Without Amelia Kerr, they need someone to step up with runs, and they need a bowler to step up, because Amelia Kerr, she's arguably the best batter and she's the best bowler. So how do you fill the void for runs? Georgia Plymouth, Maddie Green, Brooke Halliday, Izzy Gaze, and then Jess Kerr. You got 5 batters there who are capable now of filling that void. And Eden Carson is kind of the opposite of Jess Kerr, because she's a really good T20 bowler, less so a good ODI bowler. She's got an average of 16 in T20s and an average of 36.7 in ODIs. She's been pretty good, and she's played both the ODIs to start with of this series. So I'm looking for Eden Carson to step up. She's bowled the full 10 overs, 20 overs already. So I don't know how she can step up. Like, she's already filled the hole that Amelia Kerr left. But she's the most economical of the White Ferns wicket takers. She's the only player who's bowled 20 overs. I think this can be a nice moment for Eden Carson to establish herself in both formats, because she is an excellent T20 bowler. Now she's got a good opportunity in this final ODI to really stamp her mark on a series win in India. Also, just quickly, we had Ford Trophy cricket double banger last Wednesday. And then Saturday, I think we talked about Chad Bowes on our bonus podcast on Thursday. So that's a example of the stuff we talk about on the bonus podcast on Patreon and Substack, updating the New Zealand sports matters. And then Auckland defeated Otago. The other two games on Saturday were rained off. Auckland defeated Otago, though. Otago scored runs. Dale Phillips is pretty good. He's in good form. They had Leo Carter score runs. Luke Georgeson scored runs. You had Addy Ashok taking wickets. Michael Sklanders took some wickets. Dunru Fern took some wickets for Auckland. And then Sklanders and Jock McKenzie scored runs for Auckland to give them the win. I have written about the Ford Trophy today, so you can check out more insights and takeaways from the first few rounds. Something I have hammered home, though, is that every team has a good emerging all-rounder. And I'm really interested in Jock McKenzie because he scored runs for Auckland. Jock McKenzie is the all-rounder for Auckland. Christian Clark is the all-rounder for ND. Will Clark's the all-rounder for CD. Nathan Smith for Wellington. Zach Foulkes for Canterbury. And Luke Georgeson for Otago. And if I just get into the best run scorers and best bowlers, I think we will find that Luke Georgeson is just quietly hitting 114 runs at a strike rate of 104 in the middle order for Otago. So shout out to him. And it's also interesting because we got the young Blackcaps in the Ford Trophy. So there's a younger squad selected to tour Sri Lanka. And a lot of these dudes are playing Ford Trophy right now. And we've got Josh Clarkson. Hasn't done a whole lot with battle ball. Tim Robertson did hit a nice little 72. So shout out, that was a good knock. Nathan Smith hasn't done a whole lot yet. Matt Hay hasn't done a whole lot. Zach Foulkes, he hit 49 runs in the same game that Chad Bowes went crazy. 49 runs, strike rate of 106, and he's got 5 wickets and an average of 7. Dean Foxcroft hasn't done a whole lot either. So the best emerging Blackcaps that are named to tour Sri Lanka right now, Tim Robinson and Zach Foulkes. Good stuff.